the Little Johnny Chronicles number 20, the Darkness series, episode 2, The Addict. So today we're going to talk about the Little Darkness series that I'm hosting. Again, the goal of outlining the dark parts of our personality is all in the effort to improve and move closer to something that might be good or better for ourselves. And why would we do that? Well, the better we do for ourselves, the easier it is for people around us to operate. And therefore, through simple translation, you can see that as we find better ways to operate in our individual lives, the people in our environment are immediate beneficiaries of that. I wanted to do a better job here, so I was prepared to do my homework and find some research and give you some statistics. But I found that every time I try to set up my little workspace, right, because we're products of our environment, and I wanted to set up my computer and stuff like that so I can do some research, take some good notes, put together a good presentation. I know how to use a computer, use an outline, and of course, if I had a script, the presentation would be that much better. But I found that every time I try to do that, I got sick, I got ill, and I'm trying to narrow down why that is. I think it's some new medication that I started on, and you know how that goes. Sometimes it doesn't always agree with you, or it takes some time to adjust. And so I kept taking it, and of course, it knocked me out for a few more days. But what's the point? So maybe it's not that it was making me sick. Maybe it was a signal. Maybe it was a signal that I'm trying too hard, and maybe I should just get on with it. I can interpret it that way if I desire. Maybe it's far-fetched to think about it in that manner, but the universe has a way of speaking to us, and if we are calm and we open our mind and we listen, we can take those cues and it can help us to move forward. So in that vein, maybe that's what I'm going to do today. Instead of trying to find the perfect environment, the perfect scenario, the perfect script, maybe I already have what it takes to do this presentation. So that's where I'm coming from today. So let's begin. Let's talk about life's elixirs first. The way I view intoxicants now, it has changed greatly from when I was young. When I was young, those things existed. Even up to a couple years ago, existed just a party, to have a good time, to get away from it all. I also use it to soothe myself. I think I've expressed here that you could probably consider me an alcoholic. I don't drink anymore, but I used to drink heavily. I didn't drink every day, but when I did drink, I drank to get fucked up. And I probably drank, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week. It just depended on what was going on. And there was always a reason to celebrate. Give me a second. Let me make some adjustments here. Sorry about that. I didn't do a good job of preparing, right? Hey, I'm doing my little thing. That's why I wanted the quote-unquote perfect little setup, so I could avoid all these mishaps. Of course, preparation is key for a lot of things, because you want to do a good job. And obviously, I'm already messing this up, but that's all right. We're going to keep going. You can't stop just because you have some hiccups, just because it doesn't look perfect. And if you just operate under the tenet that life isn't perfect, it's easy to go ahead and just get started with what you need to get done in life. So let's keep going. So life's elixirs. And I guess I was blinded by my addiction for a long time. And that's why I want to talk about this stuff. I think addiction, not necessarily elixirs in and of themselves, but addiction is the gateway to the dark side. Is one of the gateways to the dark side anyway. It easily escalates into criminality, and we're going to outline how and why. But like I was saying, my philosophy on elixirs has evolved, and I think there's a place for them. Addiction doesn't have to be spoken about in the context of intoxicants. We can talk about people's addiction to food, but that's also something you're ingesting. People have addiction to crazy shit. I was watching, I think there's a TV show that talks about my crazy addictions or some bullshit like that, and people are addicted to eating toilet paper. And again, that's a product, I think, of an unhealthy mind. And I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just calling it as I see it, right? My addictions are probably a product of an unhealthy mind. And so what I'm saying here is that although elixirs have a place, they can be pretty damaging. They can affect your social life. But again, it quickly escalates into a level of criminality depending on what the intoxicant is. So let's talk about it in a healthy way, right? And give it some context. We've all heard of the people that like to go home and unwind, right? They want to take the edge off at the end of the day, and so they have a drink. And there are people that can pull that off. They go home, they pour their little glass of whiskey or brandy or whatever, or cognac, whatever their flavor, right? Vodka, and they have that one drink afterward to take the edge off. And to me, what that sounds like is a ceremony. I think that's how we're supposed to use these elixirs. There should be some type of formalized, or it could be informal, loosely formal ceremony in order to achieve a thing for yourself, for your mind, for your brain, right? And so what does taking the edge off mean? It allows some people to relax. I think we all, not all, but most of us have had the experience where we take a shot and leave it at that. But it does help us to relax a little bit. It helps us to unwind. And I think the word unwind is fairly broad, and I think it means something more than what people just, our simple minds assign to it. Literally unwind, unravel the stress, unravel our body, unravel our mind to just relax and absorb what's outside, right? Have you ever been, it's like stepping outside into the sun and being a flower, and you unravel your leaves or you unravel your petals to absorb more of the sunlight, right? That type of thing. It gives us time to reflect. So what does that sound like to me? That sounds like meditation. So you go home, you have a glass of whatever, pick your elixir. I tend to like cognac. And you just reflect and you think about the day. You think about what's gone on. It definitely sounds like some sort of meditation. And maybe it's not as deep as it should be. However, it is a form of meditation, and that sounds pretty healthy to me. And it also gives us the opportunity to reset. So we reflect as we unwind, as we work to relax. We're resetting. We're preparing for the next adventure, for the next day, or for whatever the rest of the day has to bring us. And in that vein, it also gives us the opportunity to prepare. All right, I'm reflecting. I've evaluated all the things for the day. So what do I need to do now? What is the next step in my journey? And then that leads to sustainment. All right, so now that I've done all these things, I've relaxed, unwind, reflected, I'm resetting, I've prepared. Now I can go at it again. So wash, rinse, repeat, right? It's the cycle of life. And it sounds very much like a ceremony to me, right? You can go into the jungle and do your ayahuasca retreat once a year, once every 5 years, or once in a lifetime. That's all probably anybody needs for that, something like that. But it allows you to gain new perspective in this context of taking the edge off for the rest of the evening or the next day or the rest of the week, however you do this, whatever your iteration is. Or if you go into the jungle and do the ayahuasca retreat, that implies to me, maybe helping to prepare for your life's journey, resetting, some sort of reset. So there you go. That's my philosophy on the elixirs now. I think it has a place. It should be done. I think moderation is the wrong word. I think elixirs are more as needed. I think we should use our instinct, our intuition as to when maybe we need some prodding or a different perspective. And so let's move on. We'll discuss all those things. Let's just talk about addiction in general. Where do we start our journey in life or to improvement, right? So in the context of addiction, how do we reset? How do we get sober? Why do we get sober? What the fuck is the point? And how do we start? Well, the point is to do better. That's it. it doesn't get more complicated than that. And doing better, of course, I use the analogy of seeking the light, trying to live on the light side as opposed to the dark. And where do you start that journey? You start where you are. It doesn't matter if you're hooked on coke, if you're hooked on crack, if you're hooked on all the above, if you're in prison, if you're free, if you're a working professional and you're a highly functioning addict, if you're out in the street, you have to start where you are. There's no way around that. Like it's not an exercise in complication. It's an exercise in evaluation on where am I, what am I doing, and where do I want to go, and what is good for me and what is good for others. A lot of questions there, right? But where do you start? You just start where you are. No shame, no judgment. You have to find a starting position, and there's no better place to start. And matter of fact, you don't have a choice than to start exactly in the position that you're sitting in right now, your current condition. And so after that, where do you start? Where I start now, and who do I start with? What do I reach out to make the first step? You start with yourself. And what does that mean? You start with self-healing. Self-healing is simply taking care of yourself. And what are the different types of health? You start with your general health, right? Let's list some types of things that you can work on immediately. You can work on your physical health, exercise, eating right, etc. You can start with your mental health, understanding what your ailments are, whether you're suffering from depression, anxiety, maybe you're just stressed out. You don't have to have a diagnosable condition. Maybe you're just out of sorts in your head. It could be a spiritual way. Maybe, for some people, religion is the way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you're serving under a religious leader who isn't manipulative, who isn't trying to take advantage, who really is concerned about your spiritual well-being. And that's it. Did you have to follow a religion? I don't think so. I think if you take the example of meditation, and you just sit with yourself and you just try to understand what's going on inside in relation to the outside, and you try to listen and observe your soul and what it's saying to you, I think that goes a long way. I don't necessarily believe that you can make it on your own, but I think that type of meditation, that type of spiritual meditation, invites the different ideas that are being delivered to you from the universe or God. Because if we're already born with this stuff innately, which I think we are, how do I activate it? How do I find those things that I need to improve my life? Sometimes it's as easy as being still and being quiet and just listening to the thoughts that develop in your head, jettisoning the ones that don't serve you and embracing the ones that you think will make you better. There's intellectual health. Can I read a book? Can I listen to a podcast? Can I speak to somebody who knows better than me about the subject, or somebody who has experience with addiction to help me understand why I'm taking a wrong turn here when it comes to life's elixirs? Simply getting smarter about your condition and how to improve it. And that's a broad-ranging subject. I mean, it could be anything. Maybe you just need some guidance. Maybe nobody told you that shit's bad for you. I think that's an absolute possibility. You have to think of the environments that people grow up in. And when you grow up, and I'm not trying to insult anybody, but when you grow up, you're born a crack baby, and you're already born addicted. And then you grow up into an environment, and as soon as you start to understand, whatever your age is, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that the people around you are still addicted to stuff. What are your prospects? What is your trajectory at that point? You may not know any better, and that's okay. The point is to learn, to understand where you're at, to understand that there's a better way or method of living your life, and then following that road. Emotional health. Again, if you have all those other things put together for you, if you're always out of sorts, if you can't find patience, if you can't get out of your own head, then it makes it really hard to think through all those problems. It makes it really hard to cope. And again, it makes it really easy to fall back into the realm, into the rut of addiction. And the last one, I'm sure there's other types of health, but these are the ones that came off the top of my head. Again, I didn't get to do my homework. I'm just going for it because, well, the signs are pushing me towards that way. Financial health. Finally, financial health. if you have more resources, in my opinion, it's easier to overcome those addictions. Financial, how can that help you? Well, one, you can afford to go to a better rehabilitation center. You can afford to go to a rehabilitation center that's more holistic. Instead of just focusing on your addiction, like a detox, and then an AA type of environment, you have that, and you have maybe mental health counselors. Maybe you have access to some medications. I'm not an advocate for, pharmaceutical medications that help you do better. However, they are a tool, and I won't say that I haven't or won't use them, but they're a tool. They're not a lifelong prescription. The way that some of these people frame it, you can overcome all these ailments, and of course, if you have money, you have access to maybe even better drugs, maybe better pharmaceuticals that will help you get to your endpoint faster, your goal faster. Next. All right, so we've talked about where we start our journey. So we understand you just have to start where you're at. A good starting point is just working on self-healing, and a good point to start there is just your general health. Look at all the different aspects of your health, evaluate them properly, prioritize it. If you're malnourished, if you have different types of ailments caused by your addiction, maybe you want to start addressing those things there. It's not hard. If you're addicted because you've gone through some traumatic episode, maybe it's mental health. Maybe you need to reach out to God to help you with that, as opposed to a psychiatrist. You have to be the evaluator of that, though. You're in charge of your journey. So just be honest with yourself. When I started thinking about these things, the reason I started thinking about it is because I had a life event. I went through a divorce, and I just couldn't get my shit together. And I knew that drinking and doing other stuff was not helping me. It wasn't assisting me to get better. Alcohol is a depressant, and so obviously that's one of the first things I needed to do, is to get rid of that. But also it was affecting me physically, so started to try to go to the gym, started to try to stop drinking. I did do a lot more prayer, so there you go, right? I was seeking God's assistance and help me improve my situation, because I felt so distraught. I was emotionally distraught, so of course I went to I'm a veteran, so I went to the VA and got myself a psychologist. They gave me access to a psychiatrist. So I started doing everything I could do to improve my situation. I was grasping at straws at that point, and I needed help. I was asking for help from the universe, from God. I was asking for help from the medical system that I had access to, and I was asking for help from my friends, right? My community, my spiritual health, my tribe. I was asking them, hey, listen to me, help me understand my problem. Or some of them were just there to soothe me, and we shouldn't coddle people, but sometimes we're going through it, and we don't need somebody shitting on us. We need somebody who's going to support us. And if you have a good tribe, if you have a good support system, a good social circle, they help you achieve those things. So let's move on to from that. Improvement of the self improves the whole. So what does that mean? It improves our entire community. As soon as you start improving your condition, the people around you, if you're associated with anybody, will start to do better. Or you identify that you're doing better, and you might need to find a different environment to operate in. I think the worst thing for like a person like me is to go to Applebee's and sit at the bar and order my food. Why? Because the bar has all the alcohol. Maybe I just avoid restaurants that don't serve alcohol, and that would serve me best. I think that's what I'm trying to do these days. Trying to find environments that cater to something different, a different way of living, as opposed to being alcohol centric, which a lot of establishments are. Alcohol is a big cultural icon in our society, and pretty much it's ubiquitous. Everywhere you go, it's there. So it's hard to maneuver around. However, it doesn't make it impossible. But once you do that, you'll find that not only do you improve, but your environment improves, whether it's the people around you getting better or you seeking an environment that is better for you. And it facilitates external growth, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. It helps us to jettison the darkness, to make room for uh, internal positive growth. And so, with that, as we start to get rid of these bad habits, I don't want to posit it in a way that consuming these elixirs makes you a bad person, because it doesn't. That in and of itself doesn't make you a bad person. The behaviors that you adopt related to your addiction, that's what leads down the dark path. And a lot of the time, if you're addicted, that's exactly what's happening. You can instantly make an improvement to your life by not taking the substance. So obviously that means that it's bad for you in some way, and that's for you to determine. But obviously for me, if I could not drink, it would probably automatically improve my mood, and that's exactly what it's done. And so with that, it's made, so what do I do with all that time now that I've made up? Well, I'm doing stuff like this. It gives me time to, I work in IT, so I have certification that I have to upkeep. Now I have time to focus on that technical stuff. I'm not the best technician, so I really need to do my homework in order to do well at work. And it's given me time to catch up, to focus on those things that I couldn't focus on when I was going through it in my head and I was consuming a lot of booze. And it's made more room for that. It's made more room to help me work on my relationships with my children, help me figure out what my new relationship is going to be with my ex-wife, which is going to be highly truncated compared to what I had before. It helps me to focus on establishing new relationships with a new romantic partner. It helped me to establish my new social group, right? Because now that I want to stop drinking, I probably want to find friends that have other interests besides just getting hammered. Things like that. So it's facilitated a lot of internal growth. Not just that, but the automatic physical benefits of not consuming these elixirs. Again, if you're doing it in moderation, if you're doing it in a ceremonial way, if you're doing it in a controlled way, really, I guess that's what I'm saying. If you're doing it in a controlled way, where you understand the consequences and you're not damaging yourself, if there's a positive consequence, then I get it. But if you're not, physically, you're typically always going to get hurt, whether you're doing alcohol, meth, marijuana, right? Marijuana maybe doesn't, maybe we don't understand all the consequences of the marijuana yet. I assume if you're inhaling, it has some consequences for your cardiovascular system, your lungs. So there's that. I think anybody who's seen a marijuana smoker's pipe, you see how crusty it gets with all the residue and stuff. I just imagine that if it does that to a pipe, it does that to your lungs too. So I think that's a reasonable assumption. And then the metaphysical, like besides our bodies, finding a better way to interface with our elixirs probably facilitates some sort of metaphysical aspect for our conscience, our minds and our brains, right? It starts to help our brain to function better, I imagine. It gives us a better baseline, a better starting point to operate from on a daily basis, where when you're starting with a hangover or starting at a point of regret or shame with your day, that's probably, it's a little bit dark, right? You can see how quickly you can start to go down the rabbit hole of negativity if you wake up in that condition. So getting sober and having a better relationship with your addictions helps not just the physical but the metaphysical, the things that you can't see that are inside you, and of course things that are external. Positive external interface makes it easier for those around you to demonstrate the goodness or the light. So if you have a better way to interface with people, now that you have more clarity, now that you have a better relationship with your elixirs, now that you're not always intoxicated and not of a clear mind, it stands to reason that you're going to do better externally. People are going to have a better person to interface with. You're going to be coming from a better starting position, a more benevolent position probably. You won't be mad at the world for whatever reason. You won't be operating with all that shame and that guilt that comes along with addiction, all those things, right? If you're a violent drunk, You won't be a violent drunk anymore. You just won't be a drunk. If you can avoid the alcohol, you'll be a more peaceful person, and maybe it'll allow you to those people that are important to you to approach you. You'll be more approachable. So that's all I mean there. You have a positive external interface for people to have dialect with. Not just that, when you go to present yourself to do different stuff like a job interview, again, that those thoughts will not be in the back of your mind. Can they smell the alcohol from last night on my breath as I speak during the interview? Does my employer, when I show up to work, can they see the signs of the hangover or whatever, the external symptoms that you will demonstrate if you're drinking all the time, or staying up late, partying and doing whatever the heck you do all the time? I think those things show, especially when you have adults who have experience in that, whether they know somebody who's an addict or they're an addict themselves. A lot of us are addicted to stuff. That's why I wanted to do more homework, but either way, I think you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Let me talk to you about the smile. I heard one day, I read this in an article, that if you smile at people, well, if you smile by yourself in general, it sends a signal to your pituitary gland that maybe your environment is good, right? There's a reason to smile, and so your anxiety level, your protective posture, your hypervigilance will be reduced, because I have a problem with that, right? I don't trust my environment frequently. But I read that if you smile, it helps to reduce that unconscious registration of danger on the external. Because if I scowl and I'm scowling and I'm out in public, my brain registers that physical interaction as a some sort of threat, that I'm perceiving some external type of threat. And so my mind by itself goes into a protective posture. That comes from our caveman days, right? Because if you're trying to protect yourself and you have a spear or just unimproved weapons, as opposed to what we have today, maybe that is your brain helping you to get prepared for the fight or flight, depending on your environment. I don't think it's different. So as you walk out in society and you smile, I think you'll be surprised as to how many smiles you get back. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me. It wasn't just that I was smiling. I know that helped. Even if I was faking it, I don't fake it no more. I just do it as a habit, and it's helped because I found that it helps a lot. I would say, I don't know about half the time, but the majority of the time, people just glance and look away. Some of the time people will frown, but I think that's more rare than anything else. But I'll say about a third of the time, I get a smile back. And that also is healthy for you. And so if I can simply smile more frequently, that is healthy for me. And if I smile at others, it's healthy for them, because I know that when they smile at me, that's a positive interaction, and that is definitely healthy for me. That registers in my brain, whether it's subconscious or conscious at this point, that there's no threat outside. Matter of fact, the person on the other side of that smile is an ally. And so it just stands to reason that internally you will feel better. But that's because you presented a better external interface to the public, to the people outside of you. And so that's the story about the smile. I think smiling is underrated. People say, "Oh, don't be a pussy and don't act like a bitch." And I will tell you, you could smile and still be a man, and you could be a tough man, and you could be a sound man and a sane man. And a smile doesn't indicate weakness. Matter of fact, a smile indicates health. Okay, and so with all that, what can you control? We're trying to understand. Okay, you have a better external interface. What do you control around you? You don't control typically anything external to you. What you control yourself. You can control how you behave. You can control your behavior and your attitude, and what comes into your brain and what comes into your body, what you ingest knowledge wise, what you ingest spiritually. That's what you can control. And self-control does not control others, but offers influence. That's all it does. It gives you a little bit of influence to the people external to you, the systems external to you, whether it be at work or at a family function, a social function, or just having a conversation with a stranger on the street. It give it, a smile is it's just as influential as a scowl. But a scowl, what do you think that invokes in somebody else? Right now, you're a threat, and so they just reciprocate. I don't think it's more complicated than that. When you offer a smile, you offer a potential ally, and that's what I'm talking about. Influence. You can only control you. You can't control them. So why would you do it different, right? What do you want to achieve as you're trying to influence things outside of you? Now, if you're in danger, then maybe, yeah, offering a scowl or get the fuck out of here type of attitude is a call of the day, but I think that's more rare. Um, anyway, what I'm saying there is you can only control you. And in controlling yourself and finding some discipline and eliminating some of the negative aspects of addiction and your elixirs, your life only stands to improve on the inside. And it definitely influences how your interaction with other people and your relationships improve on the outside. So why start here? Why am I starting on this Tier of Darkness series on the addictions with addiction? There's several entryways to darkness, right? Sometimes you're just born into a bad environment. Uh, it's kind of sad. I hate that for people. You could think of different countries where they're just born into poverty or depravity, oppressive regime. Um, it's not so much the case in the United States. However, if you live in the West, if you live in a country like the United States, if you're born in, um, a hostile environment where there's drugs and crime is prevalent, which we have areas like that in the United States. It exists in every state, probably in every major city. There are pockets like that. What are your prospects? Um, well, I think in those environments, and in almost any environment in general, the addictive elixirs are existent, and so the opportunity to get hooked on something is is ubiquitous. Again, it's just everywhere, and I use alcohol as an example because that it's legal. You can get it, I think, in all 50 states, and there are alcoholics all over the place. I don't think it's harder to get than crack or meth. Those things are harder substances. You got to go somewhere else. You got to know where to go. They don't sell it at the store. Um, but either way, right? As we get addicted, it remains a huge portal, a huge gateway and entryway into darkness. And let me unravel this for you. So elixirs are ubiquitous. They're cross continental. So you go across any continent on the planet. Maybe even in Antarctica, you have the researcher, the scientists. I think they have, depending on the season, 2 to 4,000 people in Antarctica at any given time. Do I imagine maybe there's a guy or gal that takes their little stash of weed or whatever they like to enjoy on occasion down to the lab? Maybe, maybe not. But with the population of 2 to 4,000 people, I imagine there's something. Do they take their hooch, right? Their little bottle of whiskey? I imagine that because it's legal that they imbibe on occasion. Do I think there are alcoholics in Antarctica? Maybe not. Maybe that's a stretch. But are there alcoholics on every continent in every country on the planet? I don't know about every country because not every country permits alcohol. Oh, except for the elites. We'll talk about that some other day. Because they're higher up on the tier of darkness. Anyway, across continent, the cross cultural, almost doesn't matter. You can go to the Amazon and they have their own elixirs. Do they have addiction there? I don't know. Maybe you have those tribes that roll up the coca leaf and put it in their jaw, and they use it as like a tobacco, chewing tobacco, the way we do in the West. Um, are they addicted to that? I don't know. But do they have other things? I forget what they call it, but the ladies chew up this particular plant and they spit it into this big bowl and they give it to the husbands as a reward for going out and hunting, and it's an intoxicant. It's some sort of alcohol or something like that, some sort of fermented something. And are there guys or gals addicted to that? I imagine so. The humans are a little bit fragile, And because of that, it's not hard to cross that barrier, that boundary, to pierce the veil of addiction, um, and get hooked on something. I think that's just a human condition. Also, it might be a necessary tool for the mind's expansion. So, okay, all things being even, I'm sober. I don't like to do any intoxicants. I take really good care of my body, but maybe I'm lagging behind in certain things, whether it be knowledge, creativity, imagination. Maybe I have a dull personality. I mean, those are all possible conditions for human beings. And what can I do to break out of that spell? I can read a book. I can adopt a new sport. I can find a new social group. There are lots of things I can do to stimulate my mind. But are they expansive? For example, is ingesting, what they call the hero's journey worth of mushrooms, psilocybin? Uh, I don't think so. I think those mind altering substances, again, done in a ceremonial fashion, in a controlled way, uh, can definitely influence in a very positive way your thinking process, your view on life. Maybe you're just an asshole and you're looking to break out of that. Again, it's kind of my personality. I think it comes from my upbringing, right? Not being raised in a great environment in my formative years. Uh, I, I just developed that perspective of fuck you. And, it took me a long time to break out of that spell, was what I call it. And, what helped me do that is a lot of different things. I can't point to any one thing that helped me do that. However, let's say I was like that and the only thing I was offered was some shrooms. Um, I think it would have made a difference. I think it would have helped early on. I'm not saying I have any experience with that, but I can just read and listen to people who have talked about their experience with it and understand that it could be helpful. And so I said all that to say that if you don't practice it in a ceremonious way, where you're just looking to expand your mind because you have maybe a shortcoming you're trying to overcome or some other goals you're trying to achieve, and you think, ingesting an MDMA, a DMT, a psilocybin, a ayahuasca, um, all those things that could possibly help you, break through certain barriers in your head, there's the danger that you will become addicted. And so, because elixirs are ubiquitous and they can be used as an easy tool to expand the mind and gain different perspective, you can get addicted, simply for the fact of trying that thing. I heard in school, we had the DARE program. They say, don't smoke crack, you get addicted the first time, which is a fact. Don't do cocaine because you can get addicted the first time you try it, again, which is another fact. Those substances are dangerous. And if you don't do it in a controlled fashion, you can go down the rabbit hole of addiction really, really quickly. And I don't want that for anybody. And that's why I mention it here. It might be a necessary tool in order for you to have some breakthroughs if you're having a hard time in life. But with that comes the risk of addiction. And so just be careful, is what I say. Why do I think that these things might be necessary, or that they're unavoidable? I was watching Joe Rogan and I was listening to Cat Williams speak about these different intoxicants. He didn't use the word elixir. That's the way I'm framing all this stuff, as the umbrella for all these intoxicants. But he said all these things come from nature and they serve no other purpose. And for example, do you know an animal that uses these things for any reason? We don't. Maybe there's a story of reindeer eating shrooms, and for some reason they enjoy them. Maybe they have an addictive quality. I'm not a reindeer, but that's the story. You can look this up. It's a fact. And but besides that, I can't think of any other examples of where an animal besides human beings use these elixirs. And so the story is, what I heard him say was, God put them here for us. Where did they come from? Why is there why are there these substances that serve no other purpose than to bring man pleasure or to bring man and woman, of course, I say man in a general sense, bring man mind expansive experiences. It just makes sense that they're there for a purpose. They're a tool. God has, or the universe has provided them as a tool for us to use to do better somehow. Um, and that's why, again, you have to do it in a controlled fashion, a ceremonial fashion, so you can take notes and understand the changes and the negative and positive implications for consuming these things. If you just look at beer, it's barley and hops. It's the fermentation process of a thing. Same thing with liquor. For vodka, it's potatoes. If I say agave, most people know what liquor is produced by that. It's tequila, for those who don't know. If I say fruit, for example, grapes, what type of elixir comes from that? Wine. That's not. It's not a stretch of the imagination to correlate all those things. Um, I guess I could talk about cactus, ayahuasca, um, other plants in the Amazon. For example, the lady that I was talking about who chew up that plant and make this big bowl of fermented whatever that gets people drunk. Again, it all comes from nature, right? A mixture of saliva and one of nature's plants. Um, I just don't see it any other way. It's natural. It's here for us to use for some purpose. I think it's available for our growth, um, our ability to expand our mind and think about it. Um, Somebody said one day, and I don't understand a lot of this scientific jargon, but as soon as you try to capture who you are, you have to do a study, and the ingestion of that new knowledge changes who you are. So if you're constantly changing, you can never really get a grasp of who you are because the next minute you're somebody else. And so, in that vein, um, taking these natural elixirs and taking notes helps you to capture who you are at the time and then who you become afterward. And maybe it takes a day, maybe it takes months, maybe it takes years um, to understand like exactly where you're going, who you are, what changes take place. I can observe people who smoke marijuana and they are a person before they smoke, and they're somebody a little bit different afterward. And so the effects of marijuana are immediate, in my opinion. And I don't think it's an opinion, I think it's just a fact. Um, and so you can watch people who are normally uh, a grumpy motherfucker and watch them smoke some marijuana and they become a relaxed motherfucker. And I mean, there's something to be said about that. I wish it was legal so they can study it more. I know it's legal in states, but it's still illegal at the federal level. So research on that is minuscule, in my opinion. All right. Besides alcohol, what other elixirs do we have? I mentioned some already. So we have mushrooms, marijuana, nicotine. I heard there's a lot of research that speaks about the benefits of nicotine. They have nicotine gum now. Of course, ingesting nicotine comes with other negative health consequences. So again, you got to be careful with this stuff. How are you using it? Maybe it should be done on an iterative basis, a ceremonial way, right? You have cocaine, which comes from the coca leaf. Again, and of course, they add a bunch of chemicals to that stuff. So maybe it's not such a good thing. But if you take again, like those tribes in the Amazon who roll up the leaf and put it in their jaw, maybe that's the way. Maybe that's the healthy way to do it. You have morphine and heroin and opium. I think it all comes from the poppy seed. Again, one of nature's products that are available to us to expand our mind, to do something different. But again, with all the addictive qualities, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So how does this all this help us to control our consumption of these elixirs? Um, do you have a baseline? Do you understand who you are without having ingested any drugs or alcohol or medications or overeaten, right? Taking really good care of your health or going to church or chasing some sort of spiritual goal for a year or so, and then after a year of living clean and eating clean and you know, taking care of your soul, uh, what is your baseline? Who are you without all these elixirs? Do any of us know that? I don't. I don't know who I am, uh, being sober for an extended period of time. I have some insight because as a soldier, you know, we went to the field for, just depends, you know, a week to 45 days at a time. And so of course in the army, generally in the military, you have what they call General Order Number One, which means don't drink alcohol, amongst a bunch of other things. But do not drink and get high. Well, you can't get high in the military. You shouldn't be anyway. But do not drink and stuff like that when we're in training. It applies in deployment too. So I've gone sober for anywhere from, you know, 10 months. I think that's my shortest deployment, from 10 months to 12 months at a time. So I do have some insight on what it feels like to live that clean, because of course, when you're deployed, they they feed you like a king, and that's no lie. So you can eat really clean for a year. You're not ingesting any of those types of elixirs for a year, and also because though you're busy and you have a job to do there, because you're deployed, you don't have access to the mall and going to shopping and going with the family. You're in the middle of nowhere, so there's lots of time to read, lots of time to exercise, and so all these different aspects of health avail themselves to you. Why? Because there's nothing else to do. And I think that's some insight on what it was like before we had all this these technological advances and these modern time luxuries. We're living a bit more primitive, but it gives us some insight on who we are without all these external, you know, modern influences. And I found that when I came back from deployment, my body was better, my mind was better, in every single way, whether it was spiritual, financially, all the above, right? Because you're able to focus. You don't have all these distractions. You know, you don't have a phone. We don't, you know, you have a cell phone, but you don't have a smartphone. You don't have access to a bandwidth, you know, the internet and ISP, except for official business. And so you're really limited onto what you can access and what you can do, even with technology. So it gave me kind of a clean slate to start with when I come back. Of course, because of my personality at the time, or even now, it didn't take long for me to undo all that good work that I'd done. And yeah, I guess you live with a little bit of regret about that. But again, you can start over, right? It's never too late to get back to it. And that's what we're doing here. So what it helps us to do to understand our addictions and our relationship with addiction is, and to get clean, it gives us a baseline. Who am I without all this bullshit? Where does my person start without elixirs? And I think I just outlined that. Who am I without all this nonsense? And of course, as you can sit with that idea, as you sit there after, you know, a 6 month or 12-month detox, where not only you're detoxing, but you're also improving all these other life functions for yourself, your spirituality, your financial health, your physical health, your emotional health, all those different things that we talked about. You can sit there with a little bit of clarity, in a way more functional state, right? Without all the blunt force trauma on your soul and on your mind that these elixirs take on you when you consume them in excess. It helps you to understand your natural ability. Who am I with all this stuff? Am I better off without it? What is the iterative cycle at which I should consume these things if I'm going to consume them? If I take it at the 12-month mark, what does it do to me if I have the discipline to go 12 months clean? Do a thing, whether it's shrooms or just drink booze, because drinking booze, I think, does give you a different perspective. And then stop again for 12 months. Who am I at the next 12-month mark? Or who am I a month later? Does it really change who I am? Is it for the better or is it for the worse? It gives us the opportunity to understand ourselves, a lot of clarity, and what are my natural abilities in that state? do they enhance my natural abilities or they degrade my natural abilities? Does a trip on mushrooms really expand my mind and give me access to better creativity or better spiritual self? Or is that an illusion? Is that all bullshit? Um, I think each individual has to figure that out for themselves. I think there's levels to it. Uh, but again, you can't come to any of those conclusions without getting to a baseline. And the baseline is, a good period of sobriety. I think more than 90 days. Probably 6 months is a minimum. But a year, if you give yourself a year of clean living, trying to get healthy, then you can maybe start to build the ceremonies that will help you, with your breakthroughs or improve yourself as a person, etc. Where do I need to enhance help? So why am I even doing these elixirs in the first place, right? Okay, so now that I'm sober or I'm living cleaner, um, what does it do for me? Well, if you're an artist, maybe you're looking to enhance your crafts. Um, I think people speak a lot about uh, artists, whether they do cartoons. I don't know if these people do any type of psychedelics, but watching the cartoons give me the idea that maybe they do. Watching some Rick and Morty. There's another one. I can't remember the name of it right now, but the character's pink and he goes to different worlds and he experiences things in different contexts. And I imagine that maybe those people, either they're born really talented or they use some elixirs to help them develop those ideas and those characters. I don't know. I'm making a lot of assumptions there, and I don't mean to ascribe, any type of negative behaviors to those people, but it just appears that way if you watch those cartoons. It's like, how do they come up with this stuff? I'll speak of an example when I'm done with this list. A professional. Maybe you do take that drink after work to unwind, right? It can help you professionally. It's like, I need to relax. I need to reset. I know that this helps. I do in a controlled fashion. I only have a drink or two after work. And I find that it helps me. And when I don't do it, if I miss a day or two, maybe it's not so bad. But after about a week, I find myself burned out because I'm not doing that ritual, that reset, that meditation that I explained when we started this conversation. Knowledge. Again, does a ayahuasca experience or a psilocybin experience help me to gain breakthroughs if I'm already well educated on a thing and I'm looking for a different solution? For example, there are a lot of theories now on math and how some of maybe uh, our theories that we used to use, for example, string theory, um, or the way people perceive space and time, and the different ways that we use those things in mathematics, maybe they are no longer valid. And so what does that mean? Is that, well, we have to find a new form of math. The math is maybe quote unquote getting more complicated, but those complications are leading to easier ways to do these calculations. And so how do you get those breakthroughs, right? If you're there working in that space and you're looking for a new idea, because I think even Einstein valued imagination over knowledge. That creativity is what's going to lead to the better math, the better solutions, etc. And if you're kind of like me, I don't just have that talent. I have to do my homework in order to be able to do well in anything. Where other people just, it seems like they're born intelligent. Maybe doing some of those elixirs will help us find breakthroughs in knowledge, put more dots together so that we can, present better new ideas. Spirituality, that's a big one. They say, or I've heard that in the old days, and I mean like thousands of years ago, people used to aggregate, I think it was somewhere near Greece or somewhere in Europe, and go to a place where they had these ceremonies, again, a ceremony, and they consumed these elixirs, and they believe, they don't have the proof yet, I don't think, but there's some evidence that that's how maybe religion developed, by accessing, the different realms that we go to when we consume these elixirs like ergot. psilocybin, ayahuasca. You think about the Native Americans and how, uh, I don't know what they smoked, peyote, ayahuasca, gave them access to the gods, supposedly. And of course, I say supposedly only because I haven't read this for myself. But, you know, what I've heard, and some of the things I've read point to that taking these elixirs takes them somewhere else. It allows them to close their eyes and see different things that they couldn't necessarily imagine without having consumed these things. And I can just close my eyes and without any elixirs kind of see that. But I can also see, like, when I've been intoxicated, when I've drank, I close my eyes and yeah, different things come to me, especially if I'm in turmoil and I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to be intoxicated and pray at the same time. I do definitely get a different feeling, spiritually, like physically I feel different. My mind feels different. Have you been to church? You go to any type of service. If you tell me you can't feel the spirit, you're not trying. And you don't have to try very hard. You have to sit there and observe and just go with the flow and the energy. And you can kind of feel the difference. And you can imagine, if you walked in there intoxicated in any way, how you would just simply feel more connected. At least that's my perspective. And so these elixirs, in my opinion, help spiritually in a way that it could be life changing, and probably is in most instances. Perspective, and I think that's really what I've been talking about. Taking these elixirs to find a different way of looking at a thing, to gain that new knowledge that you need to find that breakthrough or understanding. Sometimes we're not looking to invent a thing. Sometimes we're just looking to understand a thing. Understand my life. Why am I going through this? Or how do I overcome these things? Because I've been trying, the normal way, the sober way, going to the doctor and the psychologist and doing the talk therapy or doing the CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy, and trying to use the techniques, and it doesn't help. I need some new perspective. I told you I work with the VA through stuff, and they have a ketamine program. And I went through their ketamine program, and that ketamine definitely gave me a different perspective, because what happened is, even though I still have my, what I'll call flashbacks, they don't take over, they don't consume my life as much anymore. For some reason, I can have a moment, an event, something that triggers me, and instantly move on. Sometimes I get stuck. I still do get stuck on occasion, but after the ketamine treatment, I didn't take things so hard. Like, even though, I still have my down days, for some reason, and I don't know exactly how it works, the flash to bang, you see the flash of an explosion and then you hear the bang, especially if it's at a distance. How long does it take to see the flash and then hear the bang? That's the analogy I use to. How long does it take to have the event, the episode, the flashback, and get over it, right? Have that bang where I'm just fucking done with it. I'm moving on with my life. I'm not dwelling, right? I'm not ruminating on those things, and move on with my life. How did the ketamine help? I fucking can't tell you. I can explain to you some of the things I saw while I was in the ketamine. It seemed like you go somewhere else. People talk about the Matrix a lot, right? Escape the Matrix. And it felt very much like that. Like I went somewhere else for a period of time. The ketamine trip, people don't call it a trip, but that's what I call it. The ketamine trip lasts about 15, 30 minutes, just depending. I don't know what the variables are there that create that time frame, but for me, that was my experience. And I felt by myself, but not alone. And that was a very different perspective for me, because, one of my problems is, that I used to feel lonely, and it made no sense. I was always surrounded by loving family. I had a loving partner. And those things never made sense. I assume it has something to do with the losses I've experienced in my life, like the loss of a father, the absence of a true male role model, a mentor even. Um, and so maybe that's where the loneliness ascribed itself to. But through the use of the ketamine, a mind altering substance, and of course, ketamine is a man made compound, not necessarily derived from nature. I assume maybe it's somehow related. Anyway, um, it gave me a different perspective that the loneliness wasn't. It changed the definition for me of being alone. Just because I'm alone doesn't mean I'm by myself. Or you could reverse that. Just because I'm by myself doesn't mean that I'm alone. I carry my own personality with me, and also the love and the care and concern of others for me, even though they're not in my presence, even though I'm not interfacing with them. I just felt, even though I was by myself somewhere in what I describe as outer space, I was with people. I just knew that they were there. I was untethered from the earth in this dark realm, and it really wasn't dark. There was other stuff there. I'll get to that. And but I felt that the people that love me, that I knew, that I gave a shit about, even just people in general, that they were there somewhere. They were having their own experience, and it didn't mean that I was alone. I didn't feel lonely, even though I was in this dark, different place. Um, and as I looked around, I could see like neon flower, with its petals unraveling, and the pollen just kind of floating away in a neon light type of glow. And somehow in that instance, it represented, um, the dust of life, from, I forget the saying at the moment, but uh, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? From the earth we come, and to the earth we return. And that flower, that unraveling of that flower kind of represented that for me. And I'll have a different discussion on that later, but my perspective changed, and it allowed me to simply overcome more quickly. I was stuck. My PTSD was not as severe. And then I can't read my own notes. Um, these elixirs help to get a little bit of a reset. Maybe your mind needs a not just different perspective, needs a break from reality. I don't know if that's a real concept, but I assume that it could be. What other ways does taking these elixirs help, or stopping or controlling or using these elixirs in a ceremonial way help? It gives you self-control and discipline. You will just simply understand that if you can control your addictions, that they don't have control over you, because when you're addicted, very much the substance it is calling the shots, whether it be alcohol or cocaine or meth or whatever it is that you're hooked on at the moment. Um, because as you stop using these substances, you reduce internal conflict, the shame, the guilt, all the different things that you carry when you're addicted. Um, you reduce those things. So naturally, your burden is lightened. You feel lighter because you're not carrying all the shame and guilt associated with being an addict, or whatever your feelings are that come with the addiction. Um, it also reduces external conflict. Think about it. Now you're functioning a little bit better. You can interface with family that maybe you burned. You can reconcile. You can issue apologies if they're deserved, or if somebody has earned it. You can improve your life, do better in your relationships, or establish new relationships if you burn so many bridges that you're by yourself, because I've seen that too. Now maybe you can make new friends. Maybe you can find other recovering people who are on the same journey that you are. Again, you reduce internal external conflict. And if you learn how to control your elixir, you have a better outcome, as opposed to becoming an addict and maybe ending up on the street. You start to plan and chart your own journey. You gain some level of predictability over your future, and you get to drive or sail the ship. You get to get behind the helm and steer. and give your life some influence. You get to influence the direction of your life in a big way. You can't predict the future. You can't avoid the ups and downs in life, but you can definitely learn how to navigate around those things when they occur, if you have a little bit more clarity, because you're in control, not your addictions. And that better discipline, of course, results in better health, just better general health. We've already talked about all the different aspects. I won't rehash it, but that discipline um, will help you to get really, really healthy. Doesn't matter which aspect you select. In general, all those aspects of health will improve. Also reduces the opportunity for criminality. Do not sacrifice your freedom. So you're sacrificing your freedom in a few different ways, if you're addicted, and you take it too far. First, you gain freedom from that incarceration of your mind. That addiction will make it the only thing that you want to seek, or make it the highlight of your life or your day. And I don't think that's freedom, because if you're drunk and you're incoherent and you're not a functioning drunk, which most people are, um, that is very much a self-imposed incarceration of the mind and the self, because you're limiting to yourself to alcohol and preventing yourself from doing all the things that you probably really want to do. For example, being a good mom, or being a good dad, or being a good student, or being just a general quality steward of whatever it is you're responsible for in your life. Also, you sacrifice your freedom in a very physical way. Your body starts to degrade, your mind starts to degrade. And beyond that, there's a very real prospect that you will get lose your freedom in the modern way, the judicial way, where you've committed a crime, and you have to pay the penalty to society by going to jail or paying a fine. But what my real focus is on, you start to do things that you wouldn't normally do to achieve that high. For alcohol, it's drunk driving. Because your judgment is impaired, you're probably gonna get in the car. If you're not at home, you're probably gonna get in the car and you're gonna drive it. And we all know that you're not you're way better driving sober than you are drunk. It's not a secret. Of course, people get good at it, but that's not good either, because if somebody hits you and you're intoxicated, it's still your fault. So there's no way around it. You shouldn't be drinking and driving. But if you get caught for whatever reason, whether it's somebody hits you or you hit somebody else, you might go to jail. You probably go to jail. And if you don't go to jail, it results in a heavy fine. And these days, nobody can afford $10,000 for a DUI. It's cheaper to take an Uber. If you're gonna do it, maybe you even put it on a credit card. It's still cheaper than paying the consequence of the judicial that the judicial system will impose on you for committing those crimes. Beyond that, because our judgment is so impaired, how many people have seen people just throw down and get in a fight because they're drunk? Especially even peaceful people who don't normally act out of character that way, because they're impaired. Now they're fighting. And if you have that fight in the backyard, that scuffle, maybe you don't get in trouble with the law, but maybe you damage your relationships. I haven't talked to my brother in probably 10 years, but I remember that time, the reason we don't talk, we were both intoxicated. I'm not going to parse whose fault it was. I can just assume that because I was intoxicated, I'm part of the problem in that scenario. If I was sober, then we kind of know what the issue is, but there's no way to parse that out. I assume because I was drunk and we were both highly intoxicated, that we both contributed to that foul, that error, and now we don't have a relationship. I don't have a lot of family, so to lose a brother just because of a fight was significant to me. I think I've learned how to deal with it. I won't say that it still doesn't hurt. It does. But that's it. I have to live with it. And that's a consequence of drinking alcohol. So even though there was no uh, judicial consequence, it was definitely a relationship consequence, a personal consequence for me. Um, but let's take it a step further. You're driving, you're drunk, and you kill somebody, and now you're in jail. And if you're a working professional, if you're a family person, family man or woman, what's going to happen to your family after that? So we can quickly start to see um, how criminality can escalate really quickly just on drinking things or taking substances. Um, let's talk about um, more serious addictions like, well, I guess all addictions fall on the same level of seriousness, but um, they manifest themselves in different ways. For example, meth and crack. I think we saw the crack epidemic and how it created more crime, more distributing, competition on the street between drug dealers. But for the addict, how do I get high? Because it cost me $10 a pop. I need to do this 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. I need, $100 a day to support my habit. And because I'm an addict, I don't have a job. So what do I do to get the money? It could lead to prostitution, which some people probably wouldn't do without the addiction, and that applies to both male and females. We speak prostitution and we say, oh, women. No, we've seen the movies where the guy says that he'd give oral sex, and they don't say it that way, but the character says that they'd suck somebody's dick in order to get a rock, and that's a sacrifice of your dignity. Um, Never mind if you get caught doing something like that. The social consequences, is that an illegal in and of itself? Probably, right? Because you're giving a sexual service in exchange for a product. That's prostitution in a nutshell. Even if it's not an exchange for cash, same difference, right? You're breaking the law in order to um, get a thing. Should that necessarily be illegal? I don't think so, but I mean it is. So anyway, um, we can go up from there. Okay, I'm not willing to sacrifice my dignity in that way. I'll steal something so I can exchange the value of that thing for some money. Um, if I steal something, I'm hurting somebody else. Somebody else earned that thing. Somebody else is selling that thing. It's their business. It's in somebody's house, burglary. Um, I'm sticking somebody up and asking them for all the money in their pocket or their wallet, or stealing their chain or their jewelry or something, right? That's all criminal. And now you're doing participating in criminal activity so you can support and feed your addiction. That's a really slippery slope. It doesn't take long to keep going down the slope, and we've seen where people kill others in order to just get the money to feed their addiction. And I think that's my point of this series is uh, we quickly, when we fall into darkness, it leads to so many negative things for us. It's very easy to do. The challenge in life, I think, is to try to do good and seek the light, whatever that means for each individual. But um, the goal should be, if we're gonna hurt ourselves, to do no harm to others. And I think that's hard to pull off. If you're unhealthy, you're gonna make worse decisions than you would than if you were feeling better. Um, I think it's that simple. And I don't think I need to outline all the dark aspects of addiction um, to articulate how slippery a slope is to do much, much worse things because you're an addict. And I think that's why the addict falls at the bottom tier of the tier of darkness, because generally the addict doesn't start off as a bad person. Maybe they do, but generally I don't think so. I think it's a devolution of it's a downward spiral in the not development, but the unraveling of, in a negative way, of a person. First we we sacrifice our dignity by giving up our bodies in exchange for product, crack or meth or whatever it is, heroin, these highly addictive toxins or elixirs, if you want to call them that. And with the sacrifice of that dignity, it makes it easier to sacrifice even more by becoming a thief, a burglar, a person who assaults and hurts other people for money, a murder even, or the consequences of just getting high by itself. We've all heard of those people who do those drugs and act out of character and they kill their friend. And now you're a murderer because you wanted to get high and you couldn't control your mind and you lost control and you hurt somebody in the worst way possible by taking their life. And now you're in jail. And that's a tragic story. You're probably a non-violent criminal. You had a lapse of judgment because of a bad episode in your drug-taking behavior. And now you're incarcerated for life or for a long period of time, and your life is ruined essentially. And it makes it a real hard hole to dig yourself out of, because unfortunately our judicial systems aren't structured in a way to help people like that. You do your time because you did the crime, and our society for some reason still wants to punish you. And so you suffer not just the judicial consequences of your action, but now even if you get out of jail, there are societal implications and punishments for you waiting as you walk out the door, even though you've already paid the penalty. I think that's tragic. I think that's wrong. But in any case, the devolution of your personality, of your person, of your moral compass that comes along with addiction definitely probably leads to criminality if it's left unchecked, if there are no controls in place. I got particularly lucky because I'll tell you the truth, I never got caught driving drunk. I was one of those people that learned how to do it and do it well. Drive straight to the pin, monitor the speed limit, understand where the checkpoints are, understand how far I can drive, don't get on the highway. All these rules I put in place because I could drive drunk, which is not true. I could have had an accident at any time. I could have hit anybody. Accidents happen. Somebody could have hit me. I could have killed somebody. If somebody hits me and they die, it's my fault just because I'm drunk. And I didn't necessarily cause the accident, but I still have culpability because I was intoxicated. There's no way for it to determine it's not my fault if there are no witnesses. And even if there are witnesses. Now, as opposed to murder or homicide, I'm facing manslaughter charges, and they could lock you up for a long time. I think for life too, depending on the level or what the circumstances are. Your life is worth more than that. And addiction definitely leads down the rabbit hole of darkness, and that's why we start there. It's readily available. It's ubiquitous. Most of us participate in the consumption of these elixirs, and that's why we end up addicted. I think, and I could be making this up, but I think addiction and these types of maladies have overtaken heart disease and other ailments as the leading cause of death for Americans. That's fucking tragic. I can't blame the government for that one because we'll get to that part. I do blame them to a large degree, but we have an individual responsibility. What can we control? If we cannot control what the government does, for example, having a shitty judicial system that continues to punish you after you pay the price for your crime, we can only control ourselves. The thing that we can control in our environment is not external, it's internal. And if we can learn how to find those levels of health that facilitate positive outcomes for ourselves, while still using these elixirs as a tool to enhance our capability, to enhance our level of thinking, then we should do that. However, if we start to understand that our personality can't manage or handle consuming a particular thing, then we just need to understand that maybe we just shouldn't participate, and we don't have access to that tool. In doing that homework, you can quickly understand that maybe I shouldn't consume alcohol, but maybe I could smoke a joint and it would help me. Again, there is such a thing as cannabis abuse syndrome. I don't know what they call it now. They change the fucking names of it. But anyway, people get addicted to smoking weed. And if you start to understand that and that it has negative consequences for you, then maybe you shouldn't do that. Unfortunately, figuring out what tool works for you requires some experimentation. But if you can do it in a controlled way, take notes, understand how it affects you, whether positive or negative, and manage it in a proper way to improve your life, to ensure that the consumption of these elixirs has a positive outcome. Then you really are using it as a tool, just like you would a shovel, just like you do a book, just like you do YouTube, just like you do, the people around you. That they're people are not tools, but we use them to 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 teach us things, right? You go to school, the professor's your tool. You go to school, teachers a tool. That's what I mean. Leveraging their role in society to help you, not using them in a negative way. And ultimately, and I'll end with this, if you can learn how to manage these elixirs, how to take advantage of them, how to ensure that they don't lead down the rabbit hole of darkness, the criminality, the damaging of relationships, the damaging of your person, it improves your life's journey. And that's what it's about. You keep hearing the phrase that life's a journey, not a destination. And I full-heartedly believe that. The journey and how you react to what's happening in real time will determine where you end up in the next life. We don't know for certain what the next life has for us. People believe that there's a heaven and hell. People believe that if they make certain sacrifices, martyrdom, that they'll gain certain benefits when they arrive to paradise. There are people that believe that, once you're done, and life, this whole thing goes dark again. I happen to believe that why would nature manifest consciousness if there was no purpose for it? I can't see a place where nature spawns any particular thing and it has no purpose. Especially with the new perspective I have on these elixirs, where I heard that phrase by Cat Williams, and it's probably been said other places, but that's the first time I heard it. These elixirs serve no other purpose, and if you sit and think about it, they don't. So why are they there, and where did they come from? I don't know. These are all mysteries, and it's up to us to interface with these mysteries and come to our own conclusions. But what I can tell you is addiction is not a conclusion that is healthy for anybody, especially the self. Again, why do we improve the self? One, because, well, we're supposed to be healthy. We have our life's journey we want to live, and you should find your path and be happy or content, whatever that looks like for you. But at the same time, you shouldn't be hurting others. And, besides addiction hurting the self, almost always it hurts the people around you. And that only introduces more darkness into this world where there's enough of that to go around. The evil will exist by itself. You do not have to be a participant, and I'm asking you not to. I mean, that's the whole reason I'm talking about this stuff, is because I see what's going on in my local community. If I expand it to the county, to the state, to the nation, to my continent, North America, I extend it down to South America. I'll mention Venezuela, in the United States. I can mention July 4th, 2024, Chicago. I can mention, as we expand it to the globe, you could see what's happening in the Ukraine, what's been happening in North Korea, in the Middle East, in Russia, and we can see the dark elements of what's going on the planet. And how do we combat that? I have no power. I have influence over myself, and that's what I can understand. I can get on here and give a speech. Maybe it's fucking boring, or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's insightful, and maybe it'll help somebody. But my goal here is to try to understand myself and how I operate, and my dark elements, my addictions, and how they can result in darkness and criminality, and how they have in the past. I could give you a million stories how I fucked up. Um, Running at full speed in a, one of those hood brawls, running at full speed and punting somebody in the head, kicking somebody like their head was a ball. I was trying to kick a field goal, and just kicking them as hard as I could. Who does that? I think it was 13 or 14 when that happened. There are several other instances that I can discuss where I hurt somebody, or I crashed a car, or I crashed a truck, or I got in a fight. I talked about my brother and how, we don't talk anymore because I was alcoholic. And we can see easily how our individual behavior just leads to catastrophe on the individual level. And if we add it up collectively, we can see what's going on in our community, in our state, in our country, and on the planet, and how the dark elements of our personalities are overriding all the things that could be good. All the joy that we could be experiencing right now is overridden by malevolent hearts. The desire to reprogram our minds so that the government can control us. And it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but the more I pay attention, the more I see that it's not far from the truth. The people that control the levers of power want to stay there, and they want to control that power in their own way, like however they imagine it. And none of it has any benefits for us. There's plastic in the food, microplastics. It's not a myth. Clean water. Do you know if your water's clean? I don't know how many times they issue boiling water advisories, or don't fucking drink it. Think of Flint, Michigan. There are areas there where they still don't have clean water. How the fuck do we let that happen? Those are the powers that be. When it comes to war and combat, we can move mountains. I'm telling you, that military machine, being in the army, just opened my eyes to what a group of people can do with focus, with determination, with the mission, with an objective, with a lot of training. We can definitely move mountains. We can do that to prepare and perpetuate war, but we can't do that to help improve people's lives, to make this planet a better place to live, to make it easier for people, to protect people's rights to live the way they want to protect those tribes in the Amazon that don't want fucking nothing to do with this modern bullshit. We can't do that. I think it's a lie. It has to be, because I've seen what we're capable of doing. We're capable of waging competent war against each other and the enemy, quote unquote. We have batteries of intercontinental ballistic missiles aimed at other countries. They're not aimed at other countries. They're aimed at the planet. They're aimed at ourselves. Nuclear war is suicide. I don't understand the malevolent thought process that goes into operating the planet that way, as opposed to our global leaders, our world leadership, working in concert to protect, the individual liberty, national sovereignty, but not in a malevolent way. There's a better way to do it. And I think what insults me the most is that almost all these people come at me, or come at the planet, come at our society from a perspective of being God-fearing, of having a religious mode of operation, where we have a benevolent guide that's here to help us operate better. But we're using that leverage of God to kill each other, to destroy each other. The example continues to reside in the Middle East. You look at Israel and the Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and they're at each other's throats. But one side is Muslim, and Allah, and the other side is Jewish, Jehovah, or I forget what they call God or their label for God, but it's the same. It's the same God. Literally, it's the same entity that we're praying to. And as a Christian, same thing, right? I'm praying to the same entity that they are, but we're at war with each other, which is irreconcilable in my head. It's bullshit, is what it tells me. Because my God wouldn't direct such behavior. Anyway, I hope you find this little presentation interesting to some degree. I hope that I've said, hopefully, at least a thing that is profound. I hope that I've helped you in a way, that I've said at least one thing that you can use to add to your arsenal of tools to navigate this life. This life definitely is a journey. I began to see it as, you know, God or the universe or whatever force or entity has delivered this consciousness into this body, and I'm trying to operate my body as like an aircraft, like a UFO. I'm trying to learn how it works because I'm starting to perceive my body as a machine, because it's a biological machine. The only difference that the only thing that makes me different from a literal machine, like this fucking physical object right here, is this fluid, is this blood, and this different type of container that I exist in. But the machinery is the same. I have sensors in my nervous system. I have inputs that are connected to that nervous system in the form of senses. The five senses. If you want to say the sixth sense, your intuition. And the better I take care of it, the better it functions. Not just the physical aspects of it, but the abstract aspect of it, my mind, my conscience. And if I can help people better control the vehicle that God or the universe has delivered them in to this planet, this earth. I don't know how this works. I'm kind of making all this shit up as I go, like everybody else, I assume. Then we can make this a better place. We don't need our governments to tell us what to do. They're fucking it up, right? Like, if they weren't fucking it up, you wouldn't have a mass, like literally thousands of nuclear warheads pointed at ourselves. Again, think of what the aliens. Why don't the aliens just come and say what's up? Well, if you have an arsenal of weapons that are designed to just demolish the earth and all life on it, well, why would they want us to talk to stupid motherfuckers like that? It's like talking to a guy that's always walking around with a gun to his head, and if he kills himself, he kills you too. But he don't want to die, and you don't want to die. So we're both walking around with a gun to our own head, waiting for somebody to fuck with us. Because if you fuck with me too much, I'm gonna pull the trigger. I'm gonna die, and you're gonna die. It's fucking idiotic. It makes no fucking sense. Why do they run this place that way? Because they're cowards. I just don't see it any other way. This life is hard, and living it on the individual level is tough. And you have to be somewhat talented, and you have to be somewhat lucky, and you have to put a lot of effort into it. And some people are afraid of that. They want everything delivered to them. They want the luxury. And anyway, if we're addicted to stuff and we're seeking the dark side, we can't get to better. We can't get to better for each other. And my only promise to you is I'm gonna try my best to be one of the good guys. Again, not one of the nice guys, because nice guys are pushovers. You don't have to be a nice guy to be good. I keep hearing that too. I think the first time I heard that was LL Cool J, of all fuck people. But I keep hearing it now. I can't unhear it. I can't unsee it. My mind won't refuse that idea, because I definitely don't want to be one of the bad guys, hurting other people, malevolent behavior that destroys myself and others. Or if you look at our world leaders, those are folks that just hurt and destroy other people while they reap all the benefits, all the royalties of war, all the treasures of war, which makes no sense if you're a God-fearing person which they claim to be. And obviously it's a fucking lie. Have a great day. Work on your addictions, whether it be elixirs or food or sex. Like, there's a million addictions, right? And they all lead down that bad rabbit hole. I pray for you, and I mean that. I hope that that's not insulting. Prayer is just positive energy directed toward people, and I hope that you learn to pray too. Pray for yourself. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit selfish, because it starts with the self. That's what helps all of us to work together. Enjoy your day.